Hey sisters, are you a woman over 50 or beyond? Or an OFW who spent years caring, giving, and surviving? And now, in the quiet of midlife, you feel unseen, unheard, or simply lost. Maybe there's an emptiness inside you asking, what now? Is this it? Or you're quietly wondering who you are now. If you're longing for more meaning, more purpose, and a deeper sense of self in these seasons of life, you're in the right place. I'm Jocelyn, and I'm a woman in midlife, an OFW, and someone who spent many years caring for others while quietly carrying my own pain. Here on the Other Side of Dreams podcast, we talk about healing, identity, and rebuilding life in midlife, including what's possible in the online world so you can explore new ways to grow, create, and find purpose at your own pace. You're listening to the Other Side of Dreams podcast, a sacred space for women on healing journey, where your story matters and your voice is honored. And it's never too late to begin again. Let's be honest, sis. Invisibility doesn't arrive with fireworks or a dramatic announcement. It is sneak in quietly. You walk into a room and no one really looks at you, and you share an opinion, wise, thoughtful, earned through the years of living, and people nod politely. Then they do whatever they were already planning to do. At work, people start talking over you, like you suddenly turned transparent. You try to tell your family something important, and they look at you, but as if your words never landed. And maybe the most painful one of all, you're surrounded by people and yet you feel unseen. Like something important that's always there, but rarely acknowledged. Sis, that moment, it doesn't just hit your heart, it hits your nervous system. Because being unseen doesn't just hurt emotionally, it makes us question where we belong. And here's the truth most women are never told: you are not fading, but you are transitioning. This episode will help you understand why this happened and how this stage of life isn't preparing you to disappear, but to raise you differently. So take a gentle breath here. Sis, before we heal what hurts, we need to understand what's really happening inside us. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yes, that's exactly how I feel, I want you to hear this next part carefully. Because what you're experiencing isn't just emotional, it's not weakness, and it's not your imagination. There is a real science and psychology and cultural conditioning behind these feelings. And understanding it is the first step to releasing the shame around it. And you need to hear this clearly. You are not imagining this feeling. There is a real research that you're experiencing. The social aging biases. Sociology research shows that many cultures unconsciously value women for youth, fertility, caregiving, and physical appearance. When those markers shift, society doesn't announce it, but attention pulls us away. And researchers call this a social invisibility in aging women. And here's what matters: your brain is wired to connect attention with safety. So when attention drops, even subtle, your nervous system reads it as a rejection. And that's why it hurts so deeply. This is not a personal failure. This is a cultural conditioning. And as if that wasn't already hard enough, and your body is also changing at the same time. So now, let's talk about what's happening internally. Because your nervous system has been working very hard for a very long time. And that science talks about menopause, hormones, emotional sensitivity. Here's the research from Harvard Medical School and the Mayo Clinic that during perimenopause and menopause, our estrogen declines and our serotonins and dopamine regulation shift. So what happened to our body? Our emotional center of brain becomes more reactive. So your emotional radar is stronger now and you're not too sensitive. But your brain is recalibrating after decades of running on survival mode. Think of it like this is updating your phone. It feels glitchy for a while, right? But it's preparing for better function. So while your hormones are recalibrating, there's another layer most women never talk about the exhaustion that comes from carrying everyone else for decades. Long term studies also on women in caregiving and providing roles shows that women who spend decades prioritizing others are at higher risk of midlife emotional burnouts. Why? Because this nervous system were trained to anticipate needs, stay alert, and stay strong. Keep going. So when life finally slows down, our body doesn't celebrate, it panics. That's why we feel empty instead of relief. That's not ingratitude. That's a burnout that finally being heard. And when burnout meets a quieter life, the deep pain start to coming out in the surface. Because when we slow down, the question of who you are gets louder. Psychologists call this also a role lost or role reduction because for years, your identity was reinforced daily as a mother, fixer, provider, and emotional anchor. When those roles shift, your brain asks, who am I now? And neuroscience shows unanswered identity questions activate the same brain areas as physical pain. So this is not just in your head. And here's where many women turns that confusion inward. When in reality, part of this pain doesn't belong to you at all. It belongs to the way our cultural treats aging women. So in gender ageism, study consistently shows aging men are seen as experienced or distinguished, but aging women are often seen as less relevant. This bias is subtle but powerful. Understanding it doesn't make you bitter, it makes you feel free because now you stop asking yourself, what's wrong with me? And you change the question in yourself, and that's the important things so you feel less heavy. And the question that you're going to turn is what truth am I finally seeing? Let me tell you story that it might feel you close to home. Her name is Maria. She lived most of her life in survival mode and she worked hard. She supported everyone in her family, put her dreams on a shelf labeled later. She was strong not because she wanted to be strong, but because she have to be strong. And her life slowed down now when her kids grow up and the noise is faded. And that's when the emptiness showed up to her. And she said, why do I feel lost now when I should feel free? There's also a research on trauma and long-term survival and shows that when women live in a constant responsibility mode, their identity becomes task based. So when tasks disappear, the self feels like it disappears too. But Maria didn't vanish. She reached a threshold. Invisibility wasn't the end of her story, it was the doorway to meet herself for the first time. Maria's story isn't rare, it's just rarely spoken. And when we look underneath those stories, like hers, we find an emotional truth that many women were never given a language for. So here's the deeper truth. You don't feel invisible because of age. You feel invisible because your worth was tied to usefulness. So, trauma research shows when people are valued mainly for what they do, but not who they are, their identity becomes fragile during the transition. So, this season is quietly asking, who are you when you're not needed the same way? So, that question can feel scary, right? But it's also sacred. This isn't a breakdown, it's an identity rebirth for us. And this is where science can explain the process. But faith is also speak to the meaning. Because even in seasons that feels like lost, there's still intention, care, and purpose. In Psalms 139 and 14 reminds us that we are women are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're not temporarily made and not conditionally made. And Isaiah 36:46, even to your old age, I am He and I will sustain you. God does not retire women, He refines them. So now the question becomes, how do you live inside this truth day by day? Not by forcing change, not by reinventing your whole life overnight. So, in research shows healing happens through small repeated signals of safety, not a big life overhaul. Tool 1, I want you to name the transition. You have to say this gently and out loud if you can. Nothing is wrong with me. My season is changing. Tool number 2, the 3-question identity reset. Ask yourself, who was I when I was always needed? And who I am belong now that life is quieter? And what part of me were paused but not gone? Tool number 3, visibility from inside out. Once a day, take up space. Speak your opinion. Make a decision just for you. Wear something that feels like you. And rest without explaining yourself. Tool number 4, nervous system grounding. Can you put your hand on your chest and say this quietly? I am safe. I still matter. Tool number 5, redefine your worth. I am not only valuable when I am useful. I am valuable because I exist. And let's pause for a moment and gather everything we've thought about today. If you've been feeling invisible, like you could stand in your own kitchen and still be overlooked, or you share wisdom that took 30 years to earn and someone say, then I can Google it anyway. You've not losing your mind. Society shifted and your body is recalibrating. Our roles are evolving and our nervous system is finally slowing down. After decades of survival, this isn't a failure, it's a rearrangement. You've been the background music of everyone else's life for years. Now the volume is lowering so you can finally hear your own voice. Nothing has been taken from you. Something deeper is waking up. And before we close, I want to leave you with one question, not to answer right now, but to carry with you through the quiet moments of this week. So here's the question. I invited you to hold this week, not to answer quickly, just to notice. If my worth was no longer measured by how useful I am to others, but who might I be becoming now? Not who you should be, not who needs you, but you. Rush to fix everything, and woman doesn't apologize for resting, and doesn't panic when the house is quiet. Because sometimes the season that feels like invisible is actually the season where finally step out of the background and into our own life. Before we close, I want to leave you with this question. What part of you has been waiting for permission to begin again? You don't need the full answer today. Just notice what comes up. Sit with it. Pray on it. Write it down if you can. And remember, the seasons of your life isn't an ending. It might be an invitation. Thank you for being here, for listening, for choosing yourself today. If this space has been a blessing to you, you can help support it by sharing this episode or leaving a review. Sometimes, God uses simple acts like sharing a message to reach someone who's been quietly praying for it. Thank you for being part of this mission.